Here we go, and here we are.
What's up?
Back on. What's up? What's up? It is time. Well, closer to the time. Florida State, Miami, about to get it on in Tallahassee, and you're coming down in
Yes,
person,
sir.
in the flesh.
Yes, sir. Got I checked in for my flight. I'm trying to print my boarding passes. Having a little technical difficulties, but I'll get that ironed out. And you just hit me up when you get close, and we'll see what happens tomorrow night.
Oh yeah, exactly. You're supposed to be here about what 4 o'clock, somewhere around that. Jacksonville's about 2.5, 3 miles, or 3 hours away. I wish it was 3 miles, 3 hours away. But yeah, I mean, I make the trip so many times before, not even just for Florida State football, but FAMU even more than Florida State. I did cover HBCU football for so long, so we did go out to FAMU quite often for interviewing coaches in midweek and going out to the games. So it wasn't just a Florida State thing going out to Tallahassee.
Yeah, so I want to say somewhere between 420. I can't remember if it was 402, 420, something like that is when we're scheduled to land. We're not checking in any luggage. It's only a couple day trip,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
everything's carry on. We don't have to go to baggage claim. We'll just call the Uber, and we'll. Um, I don't know. We might get dropped off close to the hotel, pick up something to eat, and then just walk there and check in.
Now
I
that,
don't know. We'll figure it out.
well, now that you discovered the Whataburger, you might be able to go get something to eat over there, man. The
I
Whataburger,
know.
only in Texas.
I know my son's gonna want to stop there. I mean, I want to stop there too. But when we went to South Padre Island last year,
Yeah.
we took his friend. My son turned 21, so to celebrate his birthday, we went to South Padre Island. I wanted to take him somewhere he'd never been. I had been there as a kid, so I knew what to expect. I knew we'd have a great time. But he and his friend never had Whataburger. And they went, we were there 5 days. They went every day, they went to Whataburger because we went the first day, so I can expose them to it. They loved it. And I don't know if you've ever been to South Padre Island,
Yeah, right
but
by Corpus Christi, right?
right, you can rent golf carts and go up and down the street. And so I rented one for myself and my wife, and he rented one. Him and his friend rented one. We kind of went our separate ways, then hooked up later. But so when we hooked up later, I was like, "What you guys do?" They're like, "Oh, we stopped at Whataburger. Then we went and did this. We did that." I'm like, "You went to Whataburger again?" That was the same story practically every day. On
Yeah.
the way to the airport, we saw another Whataburger, and they asked my cousin, "Hey, can we stop at Whataburger?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." So we picked up stuff for the flight. Yeah. So I know my son's gonna be excited to go again.
Whataburger has big portions, man. Whataburger is completely underrated because in New York they don't have Whataburger. Down here in
Not in
Jacksonville,
Chicago either.
yeah, I guess I didn't, I never even heard of it before until I came down to Jacksonville. And then at the time I was in media, and we once had a media versus Jaguars charity game, and Mark Burnell owned a Whataburger. That's back when he was the quarterback for the Jaguars. He owned a Whataburger. I think he might have owned a couple of them before all this hard time stuff hit with the housing market and his commercial developments and things that he had with his money, and he ended up going back. One of the few guys who actually lost his money from trying something legitimate and not just pissing
Right.
his money away. But that's just happened with that housing market collapse back in 2008. But anyway, yeah, Whataburger, man. I started going in. The portions are always big, serious, man. And for the price, you get a bang for your buck for real there. So if you want to splurge,
so
that's the spot.
so as a kid, my brother, when I was a kid, my brother's 9 years older than me. He moved to Houston, and my mom sent me down there with him for a few months. He was struggling. Well, actually, my mom drugged me with her to Houston because she went down there to help him out. I was like 12 at the time, but we also had family in Texas, and a lot of people up here in Chicago. A lot of people have family in Texas and Mexico and stuff. So
Yeah.
when they go to Texas, everybody says, "Man, I went to Whataburger." I mean, it's not just me, my family. I mean, everybody around me, my hometown, my friends, friends of friends, cousins. And Whataburger is just a huge deal to us because we can't get it up here in Chicago.
Yeah. And ironically, you go to somewhere like Texas, you expect being the second largest state in the country in terms of population, it would have everything you need there. They're very scarce with their Dunkin' Donuts. There's hardly any there. I believe there's like a handful in the entire state. So America is not really running on Dunkin' because there aren't any, from what I understand, in California at all, Dunkin' Donuts. But yeah,
That's
the
crazy.
Whataburgers are pretty big out there in Texas. That's for sure. Things are big in Texas. Whataburger is huge in terms of just the overall size and portions they give you. I had a chance to do a radio show out there. I had gotten the opportunity to become a radio person in Corpus Christi. The town's a little quirky, but I decided to stay in Jacksonville nonetheless. But it was a nice experience being out there, though. Seeing the Gulf of Mexico instead of the Atlantic Ocean, probably the deciding factor, and some other things. It was pretty murky in that Gulf of Mexico. Not that I haven't been down there. I go to Tampa often. I see it, but it was different from over there.
Well, the crazy thing is, when we went on that vacation to South Padre Island last year, I mentioned kind of jokingly, like, man, I think I want to move down here one day. And my son right away said, yeah, let's do it. And my wife
So
was like,
Whataburger.
I could see myself. No, it didn't have anything to do with Whataburger. And sometimes I say Whataburger, sometimes I say Whataburger, whatever. When I went as a kid, they were calling it Waterburger, so that's how I
Yeah,
remember
waterline.
it. But anyway, so now we're actually considering maybe we might move down there one day. But my wife is adamant. She's like, I'm not moving to Texas if it's not on the island. It has to be on the island, not Port Isabella or Brownsville, or it's
Yeah.
got to be on the island. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
But those hurricanes can get rough down there, even in that Gulf of Mexico, in
That's
that area,
another
bro.
thing. Yeah.
And
So she's
Galveston over
talking
there.
about buying an RV and we just live on the lot.
I can dig that RV life, man. The
No,
RV life is serious.
when the hurricane comes, we just drive away and come
Let's
back.
go. Yeah, keep going west. Go west, man. The hurricane's gonna
I,
chase you down.
I don't know. It's not really in the planning stages, but we'll see. We'll see if it happens.
At the very least.
I gotta have Wi-Fi, man. Gotta have Wi-Fi.
Yeah,
Live
and
from Texas.
yeah, especially being in Texas. I mean, if a hurricane happens, I remember some of the hurricanes that happened here in Jacksonville, your Wi-Fi goes amok. Some of the shows we've done while things are taking care of things out there, we're kind of getting screwed up because of the weather, and the internet can be affected because of it. But the best case scenario, if nothing else, if you move to Texas, no state income tax. Looking at that paycheck, whatever you
Hey,
have.
our podcast might have a whole different look, man. I might be on the beach with the water and sand.
For real.
Either that or I have a cocktail or something. Anyway,
Anyways,
we'll
well,
get to it, man. People don't want to hear about my
for
vacation.
real. You know what? Having some of these human interest stories, man. Yeah, our interest is good. And we let in also with what we're going to do on Saturday with Florida State, Miami. We've talked about that a few times, several times, if not most of the time as it gotten closer. But things are going on in the sports world. Today is one of those.
They sent me an email. Know before you go, and they have different functions set up Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, that's true. They do have those things. Like when I go other places, they same thing, man. They tell you what you can do in the local area. That's obviously a nice little bump they can give anybody if you're from out of town. Or even when I went up to New York this past summer, same thing. I went for one day. I just flew up there one day, flew back down the next day, and they're giving me an itinerary for when you get there, bruh. I already had my own itinerary for when I got there. I knew the reason why I was going. But anyways,
they got something called a legacy walk. Do you know what that is?
Where, in New York?
No, Florida State. It's at 1:00 before the game, so I don't know if that's football related or what.
I think I don't go to like Florida State games like that. I've been to a lot of them, but a legacy walk I can only assume would be before the game. The players that come through the area, coming off the bus, I guess wherever they have. It may be something like what Clemson have when they get off the bus. When Clemson, has when they get off the bus, they touch the rock, Howard's Rock and all that stuff, and the fans are just really into it. Then they come down the hill. It might be one of those things, whatever pathway they're taking to get to the game.
I was thinking something like that. When we went to Notre Dame, we saw a lot of people lined up, so we were like, well, let's go see what's going on. And then the band went down the street. I was like, whatever, the band.
Yeah, the South Carolina game.
The fans were fired up about it. I'm like, well, good for them.
Yeah, the locals are all into it like that. Kind of like what I just did a couple of weeks ago when we went up to South Carolina to watch the Gators play against the South Carolina Gamecocks. the band was out there in the parking lot doing all this, and the people are so engaged, man. That's why I was so kind of disappointed. I'm not a fan of either. In fact, I'm a Gator hater, and I'll admit it anyways. But the fans were so engaged. Now, it was almost an embarrassment to see that team not take advantage of that energy in the stadium and lose to the Gators, who came from 10 down to win the game. I mean, that was a true home field advantage that South Carolina had blown, but we're realizing now South Carolina isn't that good a team this year. And, they'll be better next year, I'm sure. Transfer portal recruits, the Beamer Ball coming back. I think they might do some things. But before they do their things, let's talk about some things that happened last night.
Wait, one more thing. There's tailgating.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, traveling, I can't bring stuff with me.
For the tailgate,
we might have to crash somebody's tailgate. So be ready.
Wouldn't be the first time, I tell you that.
Okay, I'm just saying, because when I tailgate here, people come by and they're like, "Hey, let me buy a beer off you." Man, I don't sell no beer.
Well, some cop will come out anyway. Hey, what you doing? Where's your liquor license?
But no, I mean, I'm there to have a good time, not make money.
Yeah.
But and if we're grilling out, we bring extra food. One time I brought these turkey legs, and dudes were going by eyeing the turkey legs, but my friend had bought ribeyes, and that's what we were going to eat. So I didn't care about the turkey legs and the other stuff we had. And I said, "You want that turkey leg?" He's like, "Nah, man, I'm good." I said, "Stop lying, man. Go here and grab it." He's like, "Are you sure?" I said, "Man, we got ribeyes, bro. I ain't fucking with that turkey leg. It's all you." He's like, "Man, I really appreciate it." He hung out with us for like 20, 30 minutes. So you know how I say karma's a bitch?
Yeah.
Karma can also be good. So I'm hoping karma's on my side.
Yeah, you know what? Go out to the game. Besides, you're going as a Florida State fan anyway. You might be one of those guys. They'll throw me a dog food, give you some ribeye steak. So that's probably what's going to happen out there. I went to a tailgate one time. It was before a Jaguar game, and I ended up getting some shark kebab. First and last time having it, but hey, it was something different, and it was good.
How was it?
It was good. Actually good. I didn't have any opinion of it. Dude was just like, "Hey, we have shark kebabs here." Like, that's a shark on that kebab? Yeah, well, it kind of compound with the sense.
Yeah, I would try that. I had gator bites. Tastes like chicken.
Yeah, really. Exactly. I've had gator now before the Georgia-Florida game here in Jacksonville. It's huge. Not this year, but in previous years, way past when I was doing that radio thing, and we were the flagship station of the Gators. So, you had Albert and his girl, or whatever. I don't even try to remember their names, but Albert, the mascot, he and his girl came out and they had the gator, they had gator. They had the gator. I was like, wow, this thing is actually not that bad. And they had it in sauce. So it was pretty damn good, man. So yeah, a whole bunch of sports experiences, but that shark kebab, I still think about it on occasion, man. Couldn't use some salt, but I could dig it the way it was. It had peppers on it, onion, the whole deal. He was kicking it. But anyways, speaking of getting kicked around last night, we complained about there was no NBA on Tuesday. Well, Wednesday decided to make up for it. And in that case, we saw some games. We've been talking about the Celtics, and we've seen how dominant the Celtics have been, scored all of these points. They had their loss, and we were like, okay, but they're still going to be a dominant team. I think the 76ers may have something to say about this. The James Harden-less 76ers are playing a lot better without him than with him, and they're kind of rolling right now. And they took care of the Celtics last night in Philadelphia, of course. We don't know what it's going to do over a 7-game series, but hey, man, only one loss for them.
Yeah, they're balling right now, and I think the key is, of course they have Embiid, but Tyrese Maxey is balling.
Yeah.
I think he's keeping turnovers down to a minimum. I think maybe 7 or 8 in the 7 games, so barely won a game, if not a little more, whatever. But he's also knocking down threes. He's going to the basket. Maxey, he's taking that step up. And that's why when Harden was still on the team, I was saying free Maxey because I thought he was going to take that step up. And he's having a major impact on that team. So they're not missing Harden at all.
And Embiid playing the way he's playing, he's trying to piggyback off the MVP he finally got last season. I mean, it looks like in the early going, you don't want to get too carried away, but you see that this has staying power outside of something catastrophic happening like an injury or just, it would have been nothing but dissension this year if James Harden would have stayed. There's no way the team chemistry would have been what it is right now, at least what it appears to be if he was there. But as it stands, man, the 76ers, Looks like, hey, the East is, I thought, top heavy. I think the West, looking at them right now from the early going, has more depth. You have a
Yeah.
few teams that probably in Denver, led by Denver, but you have a lot of teams there that can kind of battle and kind of find its way in and still be a problem for most teams in the East. But the East has about five teams. You look at from the Celtics, from the Bucks, and then you look at even the Miami Heat doing what they did last year, not playing that well this year, like they did last year in the early going, but picking it up after the All-Star break. But you look at those teams, the 76ers is another one of those teams. And it looks like they're top heavy, but they don't have that depth that the West has right now.
Yeah, and I watched the fourth quarter of that game yesterday, and Philly was looking good, but then Boston started looking good, and I was like, "Oh, here's the same old Philly. They're gonna choke." But Embiid, I think they had it down to four, and he was being guarded by Holiday, and Holiday had locked him up. I was like, "Come on, Embiid, you can't." Holiday's a hell of a defender, but you got him by like 6 inches,
I'm about to say
dude.
the
Come
same,
on.
man. Come on now.
So he took him down low. Holiday didn't give up much ground. He didn't let him bully him into the paint. But a double team came, and Embiid, not quite a dream shake, but I think he faked left and turned around the opposite way. I was like, oh, he ain't in that, and he splashed it. I was like, oh shit.
He
And,
adds to the
and he
repertoire.
gave them just enough cushion. That was a big shot he hit last night.
Yeah, but against those Celtics that a lot of people have not been surprised about, you're almost expecting them to do something. Their move came after the Milwaukee move in the beginning. Vegas and everybody responded with the Bucks and how they had improve their team with Dame. But then the next thing you know, you have the Boston Celtics doing their thing with the players they acquired. And now it looks like they may be the leaders in the clubhouse, but it's going to be a whole bunch of fun. Hopefully, nothing catastrophic like injuries do happen. You just have a lot of the natural team there whenever they're going about this journey, and things just pan out. Not necessarily the way they should, but just having fun, and they turn out to be what they are.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I really put a lot of stock into last night's game. If that game's in Boston, it could have been 6 points the other
Same
way
thing.
for
Yep.
Boston. I think the key to last night's game for Boston struggling somewhat was Jalen Brown's shot was off, um, and he was taking bad shots too. So if his shots off, it's not like he's the man on that team. You got Tatum, you got Porzingis who can hit shots.
Yep.
If Holiday's left open, he can hit shots. He
Yeah.
didn't have to take some of the shots that he was taking. I think he put his team in bad spots by taking bad shots. Sometimes he's a tough shot maker, but he wasn't last night. So he should have been looking to pass more.
Now, do you think that plays itself into the mix? Not just him, but other players trying to stand out from the pack, knowing that there's a lot of very damn good players and all stars on that team. You might have that one player that wants to stand out, be that one guy, and just and everybody else kind of just follows. This is a game of alphas, so you got a bunch of alphas on one team, and it's not just any given night. Everybody on the same night wants to be the dog and be the one in the limelight. And then when you have shot is off, you're not believing it, but everybody else can see it, and you're still doing what you think you can do, and it's not going in and it's hurting the team, which could have been the case yesterday.
Well, it's one thing to take shots if he's open. But like I mentioned, he was taking bad shots. He was covered. He was being challenged when he should have been looking to pass. It's not like they gave him the ball with 4 seconds on the clock. He's like, oh shit, I gotta get a shot off. No, he had the ball and he looked around, he made a couple moves and then he just pulled up a jumper. He wasn't even going to the basket. And that's what I mean. That's what I mean. He should have been looking to pass more because his shot was off and he was forcing it.
And the better teams are now playing one another. They've been doing that early this season too. Good games have been coming on, and we've still seen some blowouts when the better teams are playing the mediocre teams or even less than that. But yesterday, another close game with them, 76ers taking on the Celtics, winning 106 to 103 in Philadelphia. Another close game with good teams, if not great teams, Denver and the Warriors. It looks like the Warriors, well, Denver still has the papers on them, even though they only won by 3 points, 108, 105. Denver took care of business again. They're showing they're still the
Yeah.
lead dog in the West early on, but we have no reason to believe it's going to change unless something really changes.
I watched the fourth quarter of that game also, and at the end, the Nuggets tried to leave the door. Well, they did leave the door open. They tried to give the game up. The Warriors just couldn't capitalize. Jokic missed two free throws late. They could have made it a 5 point game, I think, but he missed them both, so they had a chance to tie. Um, there's something else happened. I don't recall what, but when the Nuggets had the chance to close, left the door open, but the Warriors just couldn't capitalize.
Well, even with Steph Curry, man, he's still the same 3-point shooting maniac he's been. I don't know if it's going to, as you get older, your legs get a little weaker and the threes aren't going to fall the way they once did. I think it's almost muscle memory, old Floyd Mayweather kind of thing. You just go out there, you don't even have to really work. You just work off muscle memory and make it happen. But yeah, Denver's still the lead dog in the clubhouse until someone can prove otherwise, especially in the West. Teams on the East are going to get their opportunities at times during the season, but also when it matters later on in the season. But when I come back to that depth the West has, there's opportunities and huge opportunities for upsets. And we've
Yeah.
seen some upsets this year, even with the lesser teams that have names, but they haven't been playing. The Phoenix Suns is one of those teams. Bradley Beal comes back. You've been saying, wait till Bradley Beal gets back, wait till Booker gets back. Well, we got one of the guys back, and they end up getting a win.
Yeah, I saw that he came back. I didn't really see the score or see any highlights. But in the West, it could be a lot of those upper echelon teams. They the Nuggets might win against the Warriors, but then they might lose to somebody like the Kings.
Yep,
It's
somebody they
hard
can't
to be
get
at
up
your
for.
best
Yep.
night in and night out for 82 games. And that doesn't mean the Kings, if they beat the Nuggets, are better than the Nuggets. They just got them that night at the right time. Because I don't believe anybody would think that the Kings beat the Nuggets in even a 5 or 7 game
Yeah, right.
series. But so you can have a lot of that going on. The Warriors lose to the Nuggets, but they beat the Kings or they beat uh, the Clippers. The
Yeah.
Clippers are 0-2 since they got Harden, by the way.
But
So
yeah, I mean, shoot. Hey, yeah,
Clippers
the
might,
Knicks took care of
might
that
lose to a
business
lot of
first.
teams.
The Knicks took care of that guy first, man. We kidded us Clippers coming to MSG. But that score yesterday, Phoenix did win the game 116-115, still a close game, but the win they really needed because we're realizing now in his old age, OKD can't carry a team. Even in the early going, he just can't do it. He was always known as a guaranteed bucket. Well, he's getting guaranteed buckets, but I guess he's not getting the support he needs to help the team win because they weren't winning with any consistency when he was the only guy. Bradley Beal comes in, and Booker will come in later. I think, in fact, Booker might come in this weekend, from what I'm understanding or seeing. And now they may get back on their winning ways, at least for Phoenix standards, with that type of talent.
Oh yeah, the other thing was Jamal Murray's out. He
Yeah,
he,
hamstring,
he didn't play
exactly.
last night, but
That's a big deal.
I can't really kill KD for the Suns struggling without Beal and Booker. Who else is on that team?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
and when you consider that more than half that team joined the team at some point during the summer, are
Yep.
they really a team yet? Do they really know how to play with each other? Do they really know how to play defense? They need their 3 stars to be successful.
But the way things have been going so far this year, we've been seeing teams that have just stepped on the scene. At least in the early going, we saw with the Bucks, we got a little carried away. Like, man, you know what? Forget about it. After that first game, and Dame went off, and it's been a little bit up and down since then. We see the Celtics doing a lot of the same thing. They didn't even need to really practice the way things seemed, and they will come out winning. And even though they've lost 2 games this season so far, you can still see the makeup of that team being as successful as right now as it may be towards the end of the season when it really matters.
Yeah, but if you notice, those all of those teams are adjusting to new players coming.
Yeah.
The most successful team, as you mentioned earlier so far, is the 76ers. They got rid of Harden.
Yeah.
And they got rid of Tucker, and now they got Covington and the guys they got in the trade. But those aren't guys coming in fighting for minutes. They'll come in and play
Situational
small
guys.
role.
Yep.
Exactly. So the core of that team is still together.
So, when you look at the way it is, yeah, these teams don't have to really go through it. I guess a training camp and even preseason wasn't enough, or was it enough for a lot of these teams that have that talent? I don't know, because you still got a situation, as I mentioned earlier, where you may have that alpha dog that wants to be the guy that night, and it kind of throws off the chemistry of the team, like it did last night for the Celtics. If uh, Jaylen Brown doesn't take as many shots, or those bad shots he's taking, passes it around, let the hot hand go, maybe they do win that game on the road.
Right. I mean, it could be, right now, Drew Holiday's playing nice, but if they can continue to lose games they probably shouldn't lose, he may step up and say, look, at the end of the games, I'm bringing the ball up and I'm going to get it to whoever's got the hot hand. We're not going to just bring the ball up. Whoever brings the ball up, that's who shoots it. You know what I'm saying? He's the veteran. He's got that dog in him. And I'm sure at some point he's going to say, look, I'm the point guard. I'm going to get it to who I think should shoot it.
Yep, and it should go that way. You know what I mean? That's how a team would work. That's a team with chemistry, how it worked. Even those Bulls teams, you've watched those Bulls teams. You knew that MJ was going to be the guy, but he was the guy, but everybody else knew their role, and they played at a high level because they were on the court with him. He could be your closer. You bring him to the table at the end of the day, he closes the show. And that's what he did for the entire time of getting 6 championships. And moving from MJ, it's synonymous with, well, LBJ. What happened to him last night, man? 128-94, losing by 34 after being called out, because I believe Dylan Brooks did say that he was going to come and knock him out. He was going to come after LeBron, didn't he? He came after him, bro.
He did, stared him down. He thought it was a stare down for a fight or something.
Boxing match.
I heard Perk say that KG used to do the same thing to LeBron. Man, I don't know. If I'm a LeBron fan, I'm scratching my head today because I'm like, yo, this dude talks shit and you lose by 30. Yeah, he calls you out and you lose by 30.
Man.
Oh, man, I don't know. And then he's trying to take him to the hole, losing the ball out of bounds, crying about the ball getting stripped. I'm like, Darvin Ham's complaining to the ref. What are you complaining about? The play I saw that they were complaining about, he's turning into the lane. Somebody comes in, takes the ball away. The ball goes down. His arms go up, of course. Not the ball goes up and his hand goes down. That's obviously a foul. And he's looking around like what? Meanwhile, everybody's running down court. He's looking at the refs like, can I get a call? And that's probably my biggest issue with him. He whines too much, and when the game's going on, he's just too worried about pouting. He'd rather pout, run down court, not go down on defense. And that's your leader? That's why I say he's not a great leader. He's not.
Yeah, it's a bad look, and his body language takes a little bit out of his players, his teammates. You know, maybe it's a little toxic in that locker room because he looks at them a certain way, or he has no problem rolling his eyes when things don't go right at another player. And I can see how that can go badly in the locker room. You know, they come out with their happy face afterwards, but I can see how people would have that problem with that. You know, the body language overall can just really rub a team the wrong way, rub one of those teammates the wrong way. And we saw it. But these are the Houston Rockets, though. This is still a young team making their way up. This other team has the veterans, Hall of Famers on there, talking about how they can activate when they feel like it, and they haven't done it yet.
Well, they should have felt like it last night because they got their ass
34-point drubbing, man.
Yeah, and I see people asking what's wrong with Austin Reeves. Man, I was telling you in the summertime, in the FIBA games, that dude was getting worked.
But he's had some pretty solid games so far this year. I mean, he led the team at one point in one of the games. I mean, he's trying to earn that money. I don't think he's a complete liability.
They're expecting him to be the third cog in that big three wheel. He's not a big.
He doesn't complete a big three.
He's just a big liability on defense.
Yeah, slow feet. Can't get there. So, yeah, well, we'll just have to see how these Lakers continue to go about and how LBJ looks to get this 5th ring, which looks like it's going to probably not come in L.A. He might have to attach himself to the Denver Nuggets, come over to the East, play for the Bucks, do something, try to get some damn points up there and try to get himself a championship.
Might have to get Giannis and Dame traded to the Lakers to get that.
Yeah, right. Who the heck would do that? Come on, that GM would get fired.
I'm just saying because the Lakers, as currently constructed, are not going to beat the Nuggets again.
Oh no way. Well, take care of Houston first, and then you might.
Saying because they're going to have to go through Denver, and if Booker and Beal come back healthy, potentially they'll have to go through the Phoenix Suns too. But we don't know what the Phoenix Suns are going to be. We A lot of people think they know what
Yeah.
they can be, but we they still have to prove it. They still got to get it done. So right now, I'm saying it's going through Denver.
At this point right now, the Clippers own the Lakers, and maybe even Sacramento at this moment can be competitive and win a game or lose a game against them. The Lakers aren't anything special. You have names there. It's like when you had Carmelo Anthony, like 1,000 years old, there, and you're still expecting big things from Carmelo because the names were there. These guys have been so washed up. Even when Russell Westbrook was there, they were still older players, not in their prime, and you just look at the names and people just automatically assume the historic Laker name and then these named players should yield the championship. And outside of that bubble asterisk, they didn't. That's what it should be. But anyways, how about we talk about the close games that have been going on and the Bucks trying to get it together. They can put up the points, but 120 to 118 against the Pistons. The Pistons aren't exactly they're another one of those young teams, just like the Houston Rockets. And I don't know, and Dame and Giannis still trying to figure it out, and then the other pieces around him, including Chris Middleton.
Yeah, I was watching highlights of the end of that game, and I didn't see not one pick and roll. I mean, that's. I guess we'll holler it, till the cows come home. Why are they not running pick and roll with Lillard and Giannis?
You would
That,
think
that's
these
that's
coaches know.
that's a mystery to me.
It seems so basic. It seems so obvious. This is what you would want to do. You would think this is the perfect opportunity to do the Malone and Stockton deal, and they just haven't done it. And it would obviously help out a whole damn lot. But yeah, they
I
struggled. I
mean,
would consider it struggling against the Detroit Pistons, who are not on the same talent level with them. And I just don't know. It's going to take some time for this. And I know we jumped the gun early on,
I just
thinking
think it's potentially the the most unstoppable pick and roll in the league.
it would be.
Why not run it?
I'm about to say it would
Denver
be if
has
they
no
did
problem running pick and roll with Jokic 60 times a game.
it. Just standing
Do
like
it.
an oak tree.
Run pick and roll.
Man, don't they,
Uh,
doesn't Vucevic they do pick and roll with him in Chicago?
yeah.
Yeah, no, okay, they did it down
Yeah,
here in
they
Orlando
do. They
too.
do. But he doesn't roll. He
Just
he he
picks and
pops. He
pip and
picks and
chills.
pops, and he puts up. He'll have his nights where he goes 4 for 7 from 3 point range, but for the most part, he's like 2 for 8, 2 for 9,
Yeah,
and you wonder why passing him the ball. He's 2 for 5. Don't pass it to him again. No, now he's 2 for 6. Now he's 2 for 7. Stop passing him the ball at the 3 point line, because he'll shoot it every time.
but I remember him down in Orlando when he was
If
just a
Ben
big
Simmons
OT.
had his mentality, he might get through his shooting troubles.
Yeah, because he'll just keep
Because
shooting until it went
yeah,
in. It has to go, and eventually you're a freaking pro. But I remember Vucevic down in Orlando and how big and strong he was. He was a double machine down there. And I went to one of their media days and I bumped into him, playing around because just walking around, just bumped into the dude. The dude was strong, and at that moment, I thought, I'm like, damn, this guy's a good player. But to think about the types of players that are so much better than him, KD at that time, LeBron, at this time, LeBron too. But all of these superstars that are in the NBA are better than this guy by a whole lot. I'm thinking to myself, damn, there are levels to this stuff, man. When you see these players in person and see how big and strong they are right then, it's like an oak tree.
yeah. I never liked that trade. When the trade went down, the league was guard dominated,
Yeah.
and for the most part, it's still guard dominated. But you have your big men. You got Jokic, Giannis, and Embiid.
Mm-hmm.
But what other big man is leading their team? There's not many. It's a guard dominated league. So why trade for a guy who's not one of the elite big men? He's just a big man. Double double. Oh, so what? 12 points and 10 rebounds. That don't impress me. You're 7'1". You
He's
should get
supposed to do
8 by
that.
accident. And now last year he did have some nights where he had 19 rebounds, 17 rebounds. Okay, now he's putting in effort. But 10 rebounds when you're 7'1", that ain't shit to me.
Well, when you're that big, you're kind of expected to do that. I mean, just by standing still, you should be able to get rebounds. You're just bigger than everybody. It's like
Well,
Wimba.
especially on
Wimby.
like missed 3 pointers, you're the one in the lane who's challenging you for rebounds? Oh, I got it. Just throw the outlet pass. But when you're getting 19 rebounds, 17 rebounds, you're actually working. You're going to get them. You know what I
You
mean?
have to
You're not going to get 15 by accident.
use those Matumbo elbows and get that intimidation factor. Open up some wigs out there. But another one of the games that was yesterday, I thought probably needed to be talked about was the Mavs losing to the Raptors. I know earlier this season and even up until now, it was talked about how the Raptors didn't have anything offensively. Well, they're over 100 points again, and they, in fact, scored 127 against the Mavs, 127, 116. I, mean, I don't know. I don't think this is a coming out party for the Raptors, but to see that the Dallas allowed this in Dallas, that's probably a little bit more intriguing.
Well, I believe Dallas's problem is defense. Luca, great offensive player. Kyrie, great offensive
Yeah.
player. They don't guard anybody. I don't know if they can guard anybody. So they're gonna have nights where if the other team gets hot. How are they going to slow them down? They don't defend very well.
No, they don't. And they've never been accused of either. Nobody's accused those guys. I saw him playing defense. Yeah, you saw those two plus James Harden playing defense. Okay. We saw Bigfoot too at halftime. But that's the way that's how it is so far. And the NBA was hot last night, so that was a good deal. But what also was hot, well, there was a little college basketball. I don't think there were any real big teams playing, but the one thing that did bump the hell out of me was an upset yesterday at the Thomas and Mack Center as Southern University and HBCU beat UNLV. Bro, I couldn't believe it, man. I mean, bro, I've watched so much HBCU basketball in the past, and it's been nothing. It's been terrible, terrible. Some games have been okay, but by and large, it's been terrible. But not only is it good for Southern to go there in UNLV, UNLV's supposed to have a solid team this year. They went to UNLV, whooped on them, and left it. And they made it look easy. They were up over 20 points at one point.
That's crazy. I got no words for it. Just very disappointing as a running Rebels fan. Not that I am. I'm saying that I would be if I was.
Yeah, I've been
Going
following the
back
Rebels for
to
a long time, man. And
going back to Presbyterian and Vanderbilt.
exactly, that's what I'm saying. And I'm wondering, I haven't looked at the Southern roster to see if there were any transfers that came in from the bigger schools. A lot of times, those transfers are not going to go to HBCUs anyway. I know you look at the football side of it and you see how Travis Hunter came from a top school in high school and was the number one player and chose to go there, but it was because of Dion. There aren't many people doing that, going to an HBCU. If I can't make it at a top 1A school, well, I'll make a lateral move and go to another top 1A school. Or even if I go to a mid-major, guess what? It's still better than the traditional HBCU. And Southern won. It tripped me out. And I started thinking about 1993 when Southern upset Georgia Tech. And that was crazy, man. And like, if there's going to be an upset with an HBCU, it's probably going to be Southern. And they were a 13 seed back then. And I think, again, who's come from an HBCU that's gone into the NBA lately? No one. The last player I even remember, well, there's two players. There was Lindsey
Charles
Hunter.
Oakley.
I'm saying recently, Lindsey
No,
Hunter.
no.
And that's not even recent.
It's not recent.
93. And that was 93. I think that was 93, 94. And then you had Carlos Rogers, who I think at least and Carlos Rogers did go to Little Rock first. Then he went to the HBCU. Whereas Lindsey Hunter, he transferred from one HBCU to another. Went from Alcorn State, then went to Jackson State. And then he became an NBA player playing as a 10th pick overall for Detroit. So he had real game. So that's a true HBCU player. I've seen those types of players, that, well, he's the only one. Charles Oakley is from there. Isn't Anthony Mason was from an HBCU. I think he went to Tennessee State too, just like Carlos Rogers. But anyways, I think about that. I'm like, how did it happen, man? I mean, UNLV doesn't have to be on the national landscape as they once were. Last year they played well for a while until they didn't. But still, the level of play does matter. And it seems like Southern, who had just lost themselves the previous game by over 30 points, it comes to Thomas and Mack and beats UNLV. Just embarrassing, man. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, I agree. That's well said. Embarrassing.
Yeah, it's embarrassing, man. And then, Presbyterian embarrassing Vandy and Jerry Stackhouse the day before in Vanderbilt. is this is the I think this is the transfer portal. I think it's the NIL. All of this stuff combined is giving you results at the smaller schools who are getting that benefit. And it's surprising the hell out of these bigger schools who don't know how to deal with these smaller schools. But anyway, that's the spiel for basketball because we're going into another week of NFL football, and we know that it starts tomorrow because your Chicago Bears will be taking on the Carolina Panthers. And I think
That's
someone wrote an
tonight,
article tonight. Yeah, today's Thursday. Yeah, you know
right?
what? It's tonight. Man, time's flying, man. I mean, and you'll be flying tomorrow. So either
Tomorrow
way,
morning. Yep.
yep. So Carolina taking on the Chicago Bears. Is there anything you want to even say about this game? I'm looking at Bryce Young, and I'm looking at your boy Bajent, man. I like to
Yeah,
see if he's making
I
any
probably
progress.
won't get to this game to the second half. I don't have a lot of interest in it. I, even if Beijing looks good, what's it prove? It's the Panthers. But my granddaughter's here, so after this show, I'm gonna go
Okay.
spend time with her. When she goes to bed, then I'll figure out what I'm gonna watch.
Okay, that's cool. And there's some basketball, and there's only a handful of basketball games. I think two tonight. 14 playing, 18's playing, 14 playing, 14's playing. Like, what the hell? Math is all screwed up. Everything. What's going on here? But anyway, then also you got college football coming up this year. And by the way, with the NFL, the big game I guess this week is actually here in Jacksonville. The Jaguars taking on the 49ers. That's the big game of the week. I would assume the 49ers are favored by 3 points coming off their bye week, as well as the Jaguars coming off their bye week. I'm still. Are they that confident in the Chase Young trade that that's going to be the difference? The 3 points, the 3 point line. I think the Jazz can still pull it off because Trevor Lawrence is still waiting for that big game. We've been patiently waiting for that big game. Maybe it comes after this bye week. I don't know.
Yeah. So the line's about even money on both sides,
Yeah,
and I think
it's holding
the
steady.
perception is San Francisco, even though they're on a 3 game losing streak, they're still better than Jacksonville.
Yeah,
So I think that's why they're the favorites. I don't know if it's so much the Chase Young effect. We still got to see if he makes the impact that is expected, and if that defense improves. Because there's been a lot of talk about Purdy, Purdy this, Purdy that. He's not that good. He's overrated. See,
but
he's not
you say it
elite.
all the time.
But Purdy's not giving up 30 points a game.
It's
That's
that
he's not
defense.
the reason they lost. So to that defense gets back in the groove, San Francisco's gonna have problems.
And in free agency, they didn't go get another quarterback. They added someone else to that defensive line because that was the problem. At least they look at it as the problem. You get some young talent like Chase Young, who's had a history in the NFL as short as it was, but has been flashes of greatness, not even just being good. He showed flashes of greatness before the injury. Seems like he was trying to get on track after the injury this year, 5 sacks before he was traded. Adding that to the mix, I think, would help them out. But you know what? When you say that the 49ers are better than the Jaguars, I look at, yeah, probably defensively. And
I said the perception is
the perception, yeah, that's true. The perception is they're better than the Jaguars. I think offensively, especially now as the 49ers are still missing Deebo Samuels, that's a problem. And I think the Jaguars offense has been, even though it hasn't been Trevor Lawrence, it's just been a whole bunch of other parts that have been getting those yards. Travis Etienne in particular, getting those plays. And I guess Calvin Ridley, getting back on track this week in front of the home crowd may have something to do with it. Ingram at tight end may also, he's finally picking it up as well. But they all needed to happen with Trevor Lawrence. And Travis Etienne doing what he does, but Trevor Lawrence and the defense has been playing pretty damn good because the other Josh Allen has been getting after the quarterback every week.
yeah. To me, it's all about San Francisco's defense. If they don't perform, they're going to be in trouble. Because if you got to get in the shootout, Brock Purdy's good, but he's not great. And missing Debo Samuel, that hampers that offense even more. So yeah, I don't think Brock Purdy's the guy you want to go into a shootout with.
Nah, you don't, because he can get it done. But as long as those other weapons aren't available right now, if the defense can hold the fort, defense does win championships, but defenses also get you to the championship. So they need to play well in the regular season as well. So, but that's the big game of the week. So that's the NFL starting up tonight between the Panthers and the Chicago Bears. All the other games, as you know, start on Sunday with that big game here in Jacksonville. Both teams coming off of a bye. But before you can get to Sunday, you still have Saturday. Not only the game we're going to between the Seminoles and the Miami Hurricanes in Tallahassee, but I guess the other two big games that we can at least point out. Michigan, with all of the problems they're going through right now, finally playing that marquee game, Penn State, as a 4.5 point favorite in the big house. We'll get to see how Michigan plays now against someone with a pulse that beats often instead of in the coma.
Yeah, we talked about it somewhat yesterday. It's a big game. Penn State only has one loss. They can jump back into the picture with
Yep.
the win over Michigan. So they want this win bad. And Michigan, of course, they probably feel they're the best team in the country right now. They're currently three, so they can send a message with an impressive win Saturday.
And they're going to try to one up whatever Ohio State did because Ohio State did struggle mightily against Penn State before finally pulling it out later on. I think Michigan wants to start it early and they want to run it up if they can. And if they do, I think they will be doing some skipping and hopping it when it comes down to the rankings. If they did it, if they win by 30 points or something like that, and it's just complete utter dominance, even with the cloud of all of the nonsense going on off the field, I think they deserve to jump over anyone, regardless of who wins, because the other team that's playing a big game is Georgia hosting Ole Miss, another one-loss team, just like Mizzou was last year. But Lane Kiffin, we know what he brings with his offenses, period, regardless of which quarterback he has. And Georgia, man, I'm trying to root for Carson Beck because he's the local guy. But what I see on the field is that inconsistency, or at least he's missing that something. I don't know what it is yet. Maybe he pulls it off on Saturday, or maybe he just confirms what I'm saying. And Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin will probably be able to do something and upset this whole apple cart.
You would know better than I don't really keep up with the SEC, but being looking at it from the outside, from my perspective, I don't see it happening.
No, I don't. Man, to me, it's always contingent on the quarterback for a lot of teams. But this particular quarterback, I need to see that consistency. I needed to see more than I saw last week, even though he played fair. Man, this is college football. We get these guys in the West Coast throwing 5, 6 touchdowns in a game, throwing up 300 and 400 yards. You can talk about the defenses they're playing against because it's more finesse out there in the West Coast. Everyone thinks it is. But still, here in the SEC, there's been other teams that have been thrown for yards, and it just hasn't been with Georgia so far. For a guy who's a junior, you should know what you're doing out there. But we'll just have to wait and see with that. I'm still thinking Georgia should win. I still think their true game is going to be in the SEC championship game against Bama. That's if they can get past Tennessee and Rocky Top after this game. But nevertheless, those are the two big games. Penn State taking on Michigan, a 4.5 point favorite for Michigan in the big house. Georgia, a 10.5 point favorite, at least according to Vegas, as it stands right now, because it can change on game day when you get these squares betting and throwing the money off with Ole Miss. And then there's a story, not a story, but something I wanted to mention was James Madison is undefeated right now. And Liberty's undefeated. James Madison has been in the top 25. Liberty, I believe, just entered the top 25 after this last vote. The deal is James Madison is not allowed to go to a bowl game because they just transitioned from the FCS to come into the FBS. And there's a standing rule that says that you're not eligible for a bowl or even in basketball postseason play if after 2 years. And I think it's a good and bad rule. It's a good rule because they figure, you know what, you don't have the same amount of scholarships you had as a Division One AA or FCS team. So we give you some time to get those scholarships up to par, and then you can probably be competitive because of it. And then in that third year, you'll probably be making a run. It just happens to be James Madison is now winning and undefeated in their second year. And they appealed it, and the appeal was denied. And I go back to what happened just 2 years ago in college basketball when Bellarmine came from Division Two. Same rules. Give you 2 years to get your program up to speed. Then we finally compete in the A10 or the A-Sun, actually, which they were. They actually won it. And they couldn't go to their final. They couldn't play in the NCAA tournament because they just came from Division Two and they were in their transition period. And therefore, Jacksonville State ended up going. And not even UNF, who was actually beat Jacksonville State. So, yeah. So I think they're going to
I
get
don't know.
denied
I
again.
think it's a pretty dumb rule. If the team comes and they're good enough, then let them participate. And if they get the brakes beat off, oh well, but they earned getting there.
The letter they sent to the commissioner is exactly that. They're saying that these guys, look, this is the college experience. This is what they need. But I can see what the intention was of the rule. The intention was, you know what, you're probably going to get beat up in your first 2 years until you figure out what's going on and you bring your scholarships up to par, and then you'll be competitive. That's what the intention is, because this is not going to happen a lot. There's been a whole bunch of teams.
But that doesn't even make sense to me, because if it's going to take them a couple years to improve the program, then you shouldn't have to worry about them getting into postseason play.
But
But if they're good enough to be in postseason play, then you should allow them to be in postseason play.
I look at it from both ways, because you kind of save them from themselves, because if they're gonna get beat up anyway and not go, it wouldn't even be an issue. But because they're winning, and there's been other teams that have come from 1AA, moved up to Division 2, and they Division 1, and they just didn't do anything, and no one even cares about the story. It just happens to be James Madison, who's won championships on the FCS level, the Dukes, and Liberty is ironic. They're both from Virginia, and they're both undefeated, and James Madison's, in their case, they're coming up and they're undefeated, and this is their second year of that. I don't know. They were already denied, and because of what happened to Bellarmine, I believe the letter of the law is the reason why they're going to be denied again. I'm hoping they're not denied, because this undefeated team they have, and the way they've been blowing teams out and beating them handily, this may get them a New Year's Bowl game. There's a lot of money at stake for a school like that.
Right. Like I said, I don't like the rule. I don't agree with it. If the team earns their way to postseason play, a bowl game, then they should be allowed to go to a bowl game. I don't know. I just think it's pretty silly. There's no rhyme or reason to me why a team has to be on a 2 year, I don't want to call it ban or probationary period,
Transition period.
um, for their own benefit. It's not for their own benefit if they can play in the New Year's Day Bowl,
But that's
you don't allow them to. That's not helping them.
these teams are more the exception than the rule, because I believe a lot. Well, I don't believe that's what's happened. The statistics show.
But when it happens, I mean,
we're getting their butts kicked, and they probably could have used that 2 years of seasoning to get their program up to par before they went out and started playing and competing the way that these teams are competing now.
Yeah, but there shouldn't have been a rule. Like I, if they're saying we're gonna put this rule in place to protect you, then you already believe they're not gonna be any good. They don't need any protection. They're not
You have a
going
reason to
anywhere.
believe that, though, because there is a difference between Division 1 AA or Division 2.
Okay, but then when they are good, they don't need protecting.
But you don't know that until they play the games. You know what I mean? Because Appalachian State, they come out the gate and they won 3 national championships I think 3 in a row. And they came into the 1A level. They were winning games, but they weren't going to New Year's Day bowls and beating big teams. It just happened to be that, they had an excellent program in place. And
TCU went to the championship and got taken out back.
Got smoked. But they were already in Division 1A. It was just a damn good Georgia team that smoked them.
So looking back, did they deserve to be there?
No, well, I don't think they deserve to be there.
Okay, then.
The Big 12 championship.
Why weren't the fans protected from TCU last year? Who's protecting the fans from garbage championship games?
They shouldn't have gone because they were beaten by Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game. But so they got their opportunity, got smoked the way they should have, and that was the end of that. But I can see what the intent is in this rule of, trying to protect the team, or just kind of, look, and this is not going to happen a lot. This is more of the exception than the rule, that you're going to have these teams that are from smaller divisions moving up and having the success like this, going undefeated this deep into the season. That's not going to happen often. But like I said, I understand why it's being done. But now in their second year and going undefeated, I could see a little leniency being given. But the only reason why I think it may not happen is because they were already denied the first time, and the same rule that Bellarmine had to face was the same rule that they're facing now. And that was college basketball not getting into the tournament. And I'm hoping they can get in. That's it. And they sent the letter, and they can write the letter well, I'm sure, and convince somebody to let them in. I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
We'll just wait and see then.
Yeah, just have to wait and see. I'm just thought they're bringing it up like, it's an interesting thing. And the only reason why it's even more interesting because a situation had just happened in college basketball 2 years ago with Bellarmine. That's it. The A Sun. So is that going to be it? Now you can go with your granddaughter, go hang out, check out
Yeah,
the band.
I still got to pack and make sure
Oh yeah,
have
that
my
part.
earbuds charged, my phone charged, all of that. So
And the printer tripping.
yeah, I gotta get
Tripping.
that fixed too.
So anyway, so that'll be it for us for right now. This episode we'll be seeing you again on Monday. By the
Go
time
to
you see
Facebook, Sports Bag Bros. We'll be going live.
live on
Also,
Saturday
you can
from Dope Camel,
follow us
Tallahassee.
on Twitter too, Sports Bag Bros.
Yep. So everything's pretty much on lock now. So the next time you hear this show, Bias will be back in Chicago area after coming down for the weekend to watch these Seminoles attempt to do something to these Miami Hurricanes. We'll only know when we're there.
My arm might be tired from doing all that chalk.
Man, I hope they're not going to come after every touchdown. Y'all will be tired. you look like Arm& Hammer up in here. But anyway, that's what's going to happen this weekend. And these games that we had just talked about, NFL and college football, looking forward to those as well. We'll be able to catch those games anyway on the Jumbotron or the scoreboards as we're sitting in Doak Campbell Stadium. So,
yes, sir.
So he's Biased. I'm Trav, the Sports Bag Bros podcast. Live
Peace.
on location in Tallahassee on Saturday. Miami Hurricanes taking on the Florida
Might go
State.
live tomorrow. Who knows?
Hey, you know what? Go live from the airport. Let them know something. I'm in tow. Tell them I'm in tow. Got a little big man in tow. We're heading down to
Half of the
Florida.
Sports Bag Bros is in town. Tallahassee.
That's it. Until then, until next time. Deuces.
Have a good one.